my name is Natalie. Today I wanted to do a recent nonfiction reading wrap-up. So I never got a chance to make an October wrap-up or a November one. I thought that I would talk about 5 of the most recent nonfiction books that I've read in one video, and let's just get started talking about them. The first one I want to talk about is Vanishing Fleece by Clara, which is a book about the industry of creating wool yarn or wool fabrics. So Clara basically looks into the entire industry of wool processing, and she looks into each step of the product line, so to speak. It's looking very deeply into an area that I think has been historically quite cloaked, that a lot of what's going on behind the scenes hasn't been known publicly. So in that sense alone, I think this is a very valuable book to have and to exist. And as a knitter, I think there's a lot of this book that is both relevant and informative and educational. I think if you are a knitter or you know someone who does knit, this is definitely a book I would recommend. But also if you're interested in American industry and how there's sort of been a change or a shift between sort of generational legacies towards more of a fabric oriented system. I just found it a very thoughtful approach to the topic by Clara. I would definitely recommend it, and as I said, I will link my written review below. The other book, sadly, I did not enjoy very much, and that is Penguin Year by Lindsay McCrae. So basically the setup of this book is that Lindsay McCrae is a cameraman, and he gets the offer of filming emperor penguins in Antarctica for 11 months. The focus of the book is mainly the memoir of him living in Antarctica for 11 months and trying to do his job of filming emperor penguins. So through that you see a little bit of the emperor penguins themselves and their nature, their breeding patterns, their taking care of their young ones, how they can thrive in harsh climates, all those things, and those are my favorite parts of the book. There were 2 things that lessened my enjoyment of the book. The first is that he isn't a very good writer, in my opinion. He uses repetition as a way to convey strong emotions when he is using the exact same phrase that he's just used for something to really bring home the fact that something is very hard or very cold. But as a reader, you don't feel transported to his situation. It just feels like he has forgotten who his audience is, or that he sort of forgot the previous conversation that he'd had with someone. And the other aspect that I didn't like is his own voice. I found that a lot of the book was him complaining about things, everything that he was that he was missing out on, everything that he couldn't do in this place, everything that was difficult in living in Antarctica, like being bored, having to eat the same thing every day, having to stay inside because of the weather, not being able to film, like all of these things. He spends a lot of time just talking about the negative sides to the experience, and I felt like there wasn't balance in his portrayal of his experience until the very end, when he comes out with this sort of speech about being grateful, but it doesn't feel genuine when he's spent most of the rest of the book complaining. So I was kind of disappointed, but as I said, have again written a full review of this, so that will be linked below. The next one I wanted to talk about is Spineless, The Science of Jellyfish and the Art of Growing a Backbone by Juli Berwald. I read this together with Barbara from Barb's Bookshelf on Instagram. I will link her account below. But this is a book talking about jellyfish as an animal and all kinds of things related to them. So basically Juli Berwald studied aquatic creatures when she was younger. I don't think she specifically studied jellyfish, but something related to it. And then many years later, when her kids are getting old enough to take care of themselves, she sort of takes this up again and starts to investigate jellyfish and talks to a lot of experts to do with jellyfish. Some of them are sort of fishermen or have some other sort of practical experience. Some of them are field researchers. It is fascinating. There's so many parts to the information that is just mind-boggling, like immortal jellyfish, that some jellyfish seems to be able to go back in time and sort of de-age, which is kind of amazing. There's a lot of things in this book that I think are generally like feel immediately relevant, like things about the zinc cell and the microbiology of jellyfish and how it informs our understanding of humans as well. Things about climate change and how it's affecting aquatic creatures in general, and all kinds of life in oceans through looking at the effect of jellyfish. I thought the information itself was fascinating, and I loved that there was a strong scientific element to it. Discussions going on at the moment around the animal and how they have come to these conclusions historically. I think the only downside to this book is that there's so much information that it's a bit hard to digest everything, and I feel like I need more time to let these things sink in. The way it's so smack filled with information, it's just a little bit difficult to get groundings in this, and it doesn't really jump off the page for me. If you want to read nature nonfiction, this is probably not the best place to start, or to start with reading about aquatic creatures, but if you're interested in the topic, then it's definitely worth picking up in my opinion. So there's that. I really enjoyed it, but not the easiest read, I think. The next one is much easier to read, but is more of a it kind of depends on whether you like the topic or not, and that is Postmortems, Life and Death Behind Mortuary Doors by Clara Valentine. So if you are someone who likes Smoke Gets in Your Eyes by Caitlin Doughty, then I think you would definitely love this. Basically, she works with autopsies, and through her work she talks both about her professional career and the development of that, and how she came to do this work, and how she has progressed to the point of writing this book. But through that, of course, she talks about things related to autopsies specifically, but also to bodies and how they decay, what happens when we die in terms of biology, physically, but also things related to death attitudes and death rituals, how we think about death, how that informs the laws around it, and the rituals and ceremonies that we have. So it is fascinating, it is fun, and engaging. There's a lot of humor in the writing itself, and sort of tongue-in-cheek at times. I think I really appreciated that, because I think it gives the book as a whole more balance. There's a lot of things that I found that I learned through reading this book, and I think a lot of people would gain something from this. Of course, death is something that we are all affected by. Like, one of the things that she talks about is that autopsies in the UK anyway is basically always done unless the person has seen a doctor 2 weeks prior to their death, and that the doctor is able to tell with confidence the cause of death. It's just really good and fun. So as I said, if you are someone who's interested in the topic, if you like Caitlin Doughty, then definitely read this one. The last one I wanted to talk about is How to Be a Victorian by Ruth Goodman. So this is a book that I read with Andrea from Infinite Text, and it basically covers the entire Victorian era and what it was like to live during the Victorian era. So the setup of the book is that it starts with the beginning of the day when a person gets up. What do they do? What are the circumstances that they are met with? And then it just sort of moves through the day and covers basically all classes and situations. It is so thorough and so wide-ranging that it is sort of an invaluable book. It works both as an encyclopedia / a resource, as well as a book to read as it is. I think the reading experience of this is not necessarily the best, because there's so many things, so many topics, so much information in the book, but the result of reading it I found very rewarding. It is clear that Ruth Goodman has a particular interest in fashion history, because she spends quite a lot of time talking about things related to that, and how fashion was a way to represent the class you had, how it reflected the ideals of the time, the politics of the time. In part, the reason I'm interested in fashion history is because of how much it can tell us about people's lived experiences. So I think it is kind of amazing what Goodman has done with this book, and also another good thing about it is that Goodman is a historian that has also done sort of experiments in living as a Victorian herself. So she spent extended periods of time dressing as a Victorian or baking bread as a Victorian, whatever, all of these various aspects. And so she has personal experience with a lot of the things that she covers, which is especially, I think, adds to the engaging aspect to the book. Reading this book makes it clear how relevant the Victorian era still is, and also how much transformation was happening during this one time period of history. So those are the books that I want to talk about today. Let me know if you've read any of these books and what you thought of them, or if you have any recommendations based on these. I would love to know as always. I hope you're having a fantastic day, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.